All right. Hi, everybody. This video covers the material from the Ames and Birkin reading, all about gender training and the influence that popular culture can have on women's lives and young women's lives. So it's the asynchronous course for Wednesday, February 24th, 2021. Now, the video itself shouldn't take very long to go through. I would estimate at about 40 minutes or so. But if you have any questions, of course, once you've had a chance to watch it, please let me know. The material from this video is examinable as far as the last quiz goes. And that means that the material from the Ames and Birkin reading is also fair game for the last quiz. So essentially the plan for today, or the plan for this video, is to talk about the book chapter in the Ames and Birkin book. So we do read 2 chapters from that book together this semester. But this chapter is called Becoming a Girl, Popular Culture's First Stage of Gender Training. And essentially what this chapter does is it considers ways that popular culture influences or shapes women's lives, with an emphasis on young girls in particular. But in doing this, it also impacts, popular culture also impacts how non-female identifying people see female identifying people. So that's kind of the angle that the reading is coming from. There are different texts or different popular culture products that Ames and Birkin look at in their reading. Among those are films, television, and toys. But there are other products, other popular culture sources of information. So the first place to start this journey is with the Disney film Frozen. So we're going to start by watching this video, which features the Let It Go song from Frozen. That is what Ames and Birkin opens with.
Snow glows white on the mountain tonight, not a footprint to be seen. A kingdom of isolation, and it looks like I'm the queen. The wind is howling like this swirling storm inside. Couldn't keep it in, heaven knows I tried. Don't let them in, don't let them see. Be the good girl you always have to be. Conceal, don't feel, don't let them know. Well, now they know. Let it go, let it go. Can't hold it back anymore. Let it go, let it go. Turn away and slam the door. I don't care what they're going to say. Let the storm rage on. The cold never bothered me anyway. It's funny how some distance makes everything seem small. And the fears that once controlled me can't get to me at all. It's time to see what I can do to test the limits and break through. No right, no wrong, no rules for me. I'm free. Let it go, let it go. I am one with the wind and sky. Let it go, let it go. You'll never see me cry. Here I stay. Let the storm rage on. Power flurries through the air into the ground. we're spiraling in frozen fractals all around. One thought crystallizes like an icy blast. I'm never going back. The past is in the past. Let it go, let it go. When I rise like the break of dawn, let it go, let it go. That perfect girl that's gone. Here I stand in my light of day. Let the storm rage on. The cold never bothered me anyway.
So Ames and Birkin start by talking about some of the controversy that surrounds Frozen and some of the debate that surrounds Frozen. And a lot of these points, but not all of them, come across in this video. So if you haven't seen Frozen yet, again, you don't need to be super familiar with all of the texts that we are examining together. That's why we watch clips of them either in class or during the videos. But Frozen has been hailed by some scholars as a feminist success story. And the Oscar-winning song that we just listened to, which was performed by Idina Menzel, has been called an anthem of individuality and the embodiment of girl power. Frozen has been argued to be a story where the two lead female protagonists, as well as the film as a whole, reject the typical fairy tale ending. Those are kind of some of the proponents of Frozen as a feminist success story. But there are also a lot of criticisms. So even from this video, the transformation of the character into a beautiful, blonde, thin, hip swaying character during this music piece also speaks volumes. And that's some of the criticisms. So I like to think of this section of the Frozen article, and if you haven't read this chapter, please go back and do so. This piece here is a really great example of how you can write a literature review section. What Ames and Birkin do in this piece is they present the arguments. So Frozen is a feminist success story. Here's some reasons why. Then they levy some criticisms, or they recognize some of the criticisms that exist in the literature. So some of the debate. So Frozen, if you didn't know, is based on a Hans Christian Andersen fairy tale called The Snow Queen, which, oh, this is going to start playing again. Is based on the Snow Queen, which actually featured many more female characters. So it didn't just feature Anna and Elsa, but a whole bunch of other characters as well. And so one of the criticisms is that the film Frozen actually replaces the supporting cast of women with a bunch of men, leaving Elsa and Anna as its only female characters. The film has also been criticized because the original story was about a journey to save a platonic male friend. And then the film turns it into an all too familiar love triangle, like one that we see in many other stories like Twilight, Harry Potter to a greater or lesser extent. A counter argument to this criticism. So again, the literature review goes argument, counter argument, or criticism. Counter argument or counter criticism is that, well, the love story in Frozen isn't the focus. It's only a small part of the story. Counter argument again, having two female lead characters like Anna and Elsa is not the same thing as having two strong female lead characters. So the character of Anna is criticized for being self-absorbed, naive, condescending, and unambitious. And Elsa is criticized for being self-oppressed, pathological, and antisocial. These are not good feminist or good role models for women. again, that's a counter argument. The film has also been criticized for sexualizing its female characters, and we saw that a little bit just in that clip that we watched together. It also presents few options for women, and this is a common trend in Disney films in particular. A princess or a woman in these films has very few roles. It could be a princess waiting for her prince, an evil stepmother or wicked queen, or some kind of witch. And finally, Princess Mania, of which Frozen is part of, has been argued to place a lot of importance on beauty. And if you think about it, has there ever been an ugly Disney princess? So the films and Disney films in general depict women as in need of a rescue. They're women who are in search of the perfect mate, so usually a man. So Disney princess films have been criticized for perpetuating heteronormative ideas of relationships. And the women in these films, or the characters in these films, often abandon their life once they have found their prince. So in that sense, princesses have no agency. And finally, all of these elements together, all of these criticisms together about Frozen and about the Disney princess genre have been viewed as a backlash against feminists. Ames and Birkin suggest that this backlash is actually more subtle, more covert, and more disturbing than some of the overt actions that have been taken against women and against feminists. So that's how Ames and Birkin start their article. And then they move from Frozen, where they emphasize the sexualization of women, to talk about beauty ideals generally. So they find that there's more pressure than ever on women to meet certain beauty ideals, the beauty ideals that we see in the media products that we consume, regardless of what those products are. And because of this pressure, women, and in particular young women, are at a higher risk of developing eating disorders and dangerous eating behaviors, of developing distorted body image, depression, risky sexual behavior. Women shown in advertisements and in other media products across popular culture are not representative of the general population. The average woman is 5 feet 4 inches, weighs 166 pounds, and has a 37-inch waist, or at least that was the case when Ames and Birkin wrote their book chapter in 2016. And the women in the ad in front of you and in many of the media products that we consume certainly don't match up to that standard. And there are implications to that when we start to see these images again and again and again. And this is where Ames and Birkin present their hypothesis or their theory that really underlies their entire chapter. So they acknowledge that watching one film or reading one book does not by itself create this gender performance, these beauty ideals that we see across any stage or every stage of a girl or woman's life. The problem lies with the habitual, cyclical consumption of these narratives throughout a woman's lifetime. And when we see something again and again and again, when we see a similar message, whether it's beauty ideals or the gender roles that we can conform to or that we should conform to, this contributes to our brain development and can result in behavioral patterns. So coming back to Disney princesses, it's not that girls are born to be princesses or girls automatically want to be princesses, but they learn these behaviors and these ideas through, first, their childhood experiences by watching princess movies and playing with princess dolls. And then these ideas become reinforced through the habitual and cyclical consumption of similar messages across the course of their lifetime, of our lifetime. And so again, think about at a minimum, the physical depiction of Elsa and Anna that we see in the film Frozen, and the similarities that may exist between those characters and these advertisements, as well as in all of the other products that we look at. And in addition to impacting women and girls, these images and these messages also impact society as a whole. So even if you, if you haven't met Robert yet, that's my dog, Robert. Sorry for the noise. What I was saying was, even if you, so the Ames and Birkin article chapter talks about the impact of popular culture on women and girls in particular, as they consume these messages over the course of their lifetime, starting at a very young age through something as seemingly innocent as a Disney film or playing with a doll. So these products have an impact, the messages that they convey have an impact on women and girls, but they also have an impact on the rest of society, because that tells you how women should be viewed, how women should be treated, and what women should, and I use should in quotation marks in all of these sentences, look like. And so what Ames and Birkin go on to explore in this article, beginning with Frozen, jumping to advertisements, and then moving into a couple other phenomena, they say, look, at popular culture has an impact, or at least it has the potential to have an impact on women, on girls, and on the rest of society. The next example that they jump to is a television program called Toddlers and Tiara, which featured younger girls being hypersexualized. We also see this in other places. So if you think about the clothing that younger girls wear, there can be provocative messaging, for example, on underwear. I believe that there are lots of examples of that that have, caused outrage in stores. There could be provocative-like messages on T-shirts that girls wear, and if they're not provocative, they could still be linked to beauty ideals. And so we see this happening on the clothing and with young girls, like in Toddlers and Tiaras, but also in real life off screen. And then at the same time, as girls and women get older, we also see the infantilization of women. So again, thinking about clothing, bows, having bows on underwear and other undergarments arguably infantilizes women. So we're seeing the hypersexualization on one end and the infantilization of women on another end. But really, clothing, if you have an expansive definition of popular culture to include fashion, has an impact on how we see ourselves and the messages that we're conveying to the world. In Toddlers and Tiara, we see that there's pressure being put on girls to worry about their appearances. And so you see this mishmash of childlike versus dictated behaviors emerge from the series itself. The authors are really concerned with programs like Toddlers and Tiara because they feel that it may inadvertently, if not overtly, influence female viewers and their expectations of the roles that their daughters will have or should have. The girls in the show, as we're going to see in just a moment together, don't necessarily choose to enter beauty pageants. It's often their mothers, these pageant moms, who make the decisions, although there are certainly pageant dads that are out there also.
I'm hoping for a good title. I mean, everybody wants Ultimate Grand Supreme.
I definitely hope to win. Because I work like real hard, girl. Real hard.
Nora Grace. Thank you, girls.
Victory is mine.
And fingers crossed, everybody. The family finger crossed here.
I knew I was going to win. Because I tried my heart.
And winning a hot air balloon ride all around the world is our Ultimate Grand Supreme winner. This contestant contestant number 4. That's Miss Brenna.
Oh, it's like ice cream. $30.
Oh, she's waving. She's so cute up there.
Winning is awesome.
Brenna's at the top of her game right now. You get to do whatever you can to stay up there because once you're there, that's where you want to be. And for now, Brenna's at the top.
I'm living in here.
Oh, all right, stand up.
I think Brenna deserved her win today. I know she had a few little breakdowns, but when she hit the stage, she was as ready and prepared as she could have been. Today, she brought it. She brought every bit of it.
You walking in here.
Do you want to say anything to all your fans?
I'm not a baby anymore. I'm gonna ride in a hot air balloon.
What is a hot air balloon?
I quite don't know. Really, I don't. All I know is there's fire in it, and that's creepy. Does anybody have any more questions? I guess that's a no. Get out. Brenna, get out of Brenna's way. She's coming.
All right, so that clip, if you haven't seen Toddlers and Tiaras before, is an example of the different things that happen in that television program. But as we move on to the next slide here, think about how Brenna was dressed at a minimum, not even just her behavior and comportment. Are there similarities between the ways that the characters in Frozen were dressed, the ways that Brenna was dressed in Toddlers and Tiara, and now if we look at the screen in front of us, the ways that these dolls, the Bratz dolls, were dressed. And so Ames and Birkin go from Frozen to Toddlers and Tiara, to advertisements, to Toddlers and Tiara, to dolls, to show examples of the ways that certain messages are conveyed in popular culture products. And they argue that dolls, among other messages, can reinforce beauty stereotypes and beauty ideals. So many dolls are narrow-waisted. They have lots of makeup. And as such, they start to indoctrinate, if it hasn't happened already, young girls into this uber sexy girly girl culture. They also provide information about gender roles. There are lots of examples of dolls that have had careers. So if you have a chance to look up some of the options, for example, that Barbie has explored, they'll have different lines that exist where Barbie is in the military and Barbie is a doctor or a veterinarian, where Barbie is, Disney princesses. There's a convergence of products and media lines in the doll world, and that's just with Barbie. And even though at first glance, you could look at these and say, wow, Barbie's in the military, that's super progressive. There are other messages that are happening at the same time. If you think about how Barbie is dressed, how she is positioned, what she looks like, in addition to the different career options that seem to be presented to her. So the authors look at all of these examples and then jump in to this larger concept of post-feminism. So post-feminism is the societal perception that many or all of the goals of feminism have already been achieved. And if that's the case, then the feminist movement is obsolete. Now, post-feminism as a concept is criticized because it conceptualizes feminism in the past. So post is after. So it's like after feminism. Another criticism of post-feminism is that the idea of post-feminism suggests that feminism has already been accepted into our cultural fabric. And Ames and Birkin are worried about this because they're suggesting that we as a society take feminism for granted. How does this happen? The idea is that women believe that they are already empowered and therefore no longer need to consider women's rights, or that's the criticism of post-feminism. And this idea is reinforced by cultural products that emphasize that women have many opportunities related to career and family. So Barbie is just one example. Television programs like Sex and the City, films like Bridget Jones's Diary, those are all other examples, according to the authors, of popular cultural products that convey messages that suggest or imply that women have different options available to them. It's been called enlightened sexism as a criticism because it puts forward this idea that women have so much progress that we can start to stereotype them and sexualize them again. And that kind of happens in programs like Sex and the City. These are some of the criticisms of post-feminists. Post-feminists wouldn't agree with this perspective. They would say, and we're going to look at this as we move forward in this video, we are in control. We have the power and we are taking charge of our bodies and our fate and our future. And the authors explore this through a case study of Hannah Montana and Miley Cyrus. And yes, I know Hannah Montana is a fictional character. Miley Cyrus is a real life person, but Miley Cyrus portrayed Hannah Montana. So Hannah Montana was perceived to be quite wholesome. The show was criticized because Hannah Montana hid her true identity. And so it perpetuated this idea or this message that you actually have to lie and deceive people and hide your true self in order to be able to succeed. But Hannah Montana as a character was wholesome. She was the so-called good girl. And Miley Cyrus's early fame and early celebrity life was linked to this notion of good girl behavior. Her performance at the MTV Video Music Awards and her video Wrecking Ball, we're going to watch part of the MVMAs video in just a moment. In Wrecking Ball, she swings naked on a wrecking ball or near nude, are, Ames and Birkin suggest, an extreme example of post-feminism in popular culture. So let's watch the first clip of Miley Cyrus's performance at the VMAs. It's unfortunately, it's not the original video just because that's been pulled off the internet, but I have managed to find a different one. So we're gonna watch that video together. We're gonna talk about it a little bit more and then watch the second video shortly thereafter. All right, so there's more to this performance that goes on, and then the rapper 2 Chainz comes out. But I think just from that little clip, Miley Cyrus's performance itself, we see some of those things that Ames and Birkin are talking about. We see the over-sexualization of women, and we also see the infantilization of women at the same time. There's teddy bears present. Miley comes out in a teddy bear bodysuit, and then eventually ditches that for something else. And so Ames and Birkin argue that this performance from the 2013 MTV Video Music Awards is an extreme example of post-feminism in popular culture. It's based on the idea that pop stars, and by extension women, are in complete control of their sexuality, and that they are actually empowered by being seen as sexual objects. Miley Cyrus's performance has been highly criticized. That's the next video that we're going to watch together. And she's also done several talk show appearances talking about what was going on in 2013 and the pressure that she felt to do this performance. But Ames and Birkin are essentially arguing that this kind of performance, and yes, Miley Cyrus's performance is extreme because of its public nature, but this happens on lower scales in other environments. But these types of performance train women and train girls to solidify their gender equality by performing these sexualized roles in some kind of public spectacle, so concepts that we've seen before, rather than resisting this sexualized nature.
Miley Cyrus gets crazy on the VMA stage. Miley took the stage at the 2013 MTV Video Music Awards, and her performance had everyone talking. While Miley is, of course, going through quite the image transition, tonight was definitely the biggest shocker. Shailene Woodley and SNL's Vanessa Bayer introduced Miley, and things kicked off with Miley walking onto a stage filled with an oversized teddy bear and, of course, her dancers. In theme with the whole teddy bear thing, Miley herself rocked a teddy bear leotard, which, if you look up close, the teddy comes complete with a gold tooth. Miley kept her red carpet hair intact, sporting her Gwen Stefani-inspired top knots. Miley sang her hit song, We Can't Stop, which then transitioned into a duet of blurred lines with, of course, Robin Thicke. Miley gyrated on stage, showed off her infamous twerking, and even booty bumped throughout her solo performance. Then, when Robin joined her for his song, she stripped down into a two-piece nude crop top and booty shorts. She used a foam finger as a prop, which she used to make quite a few sexual references. And at one point, you guys, she even licked Robin Thicke. Fans everywhere seemed shocked by Miley's onstage choices, and some even compared her second outfit to Britney Spears circa 2000, when she ripped off her costume to reveal a bejeweled, flesh-toned bodysuit during her performance of I Can't Get No Satisfaction and Oops, I Did It Again. Let us know what you thought of Miley's performance by posting me a comment. Did you love it or did you hate it? Battle it out in the comment section, and then make sure you like this video and, of course, subscribe for more news on your favorite celebs. To watch Miley's full performance, you can head over to Clevver.com for another version of this video, complete with video of Miss Miley. In Hollywood, I'm...
So there are lots of reactions to that video. That is just one of them, but it raises a lot of interesting questions. Why was Miley Cyrus in a skin tone colored bikini when Robin Thicke was in a full suit, long sleeves and all? And so these are questions to think about, not only from a physicality perspective, but also from the messaging that results from the depiction of women and the roles or the ways that we perceive women based on what we're learning from the media. So Ames and Birkin, to kind of conclude here, emphasize that popular culture, whatever form of popular culture, and in fact, multiple forms of popular culture, can influence our perceptions of gender and gender roles, and therefore the role of women in society, that they affect our perception of beauty, of body image, and of what attributes are the most important in a person or a partner. They spoke about this in particular in the context of Disney films, but this occurs in a lot of other films, and we're going to be talking about that when we analyze romantic comedies through the Ames and Birkin reading in a couple weeks. Popular culture can have the effect of policing a woman's sexuality. And so we saw comparisons being made between Britney Spears from 2000 and Miley Cyrus from 2013. Not only were they wearing similar clothing, but they were also performing in a similar manner, perhaps in a similar place, award shows. And what Ames and Birkin are really concerned about is that these lessons that we're getting from popular culture are happening at a very young age. So if they start with dolls, if they start with Disney films, and if we're exposed to these messages over the course of our lifetime, what's going to happen? How are we going to perceive ourselves? How are we going to perceive others based on the messages that we're learning from popular culture products? In this case, in the context of women and girls, but you could take this analysis and apply it to a different group of people using perhaps different celebrities, different text, and make similar comparisons in terms of, what are we learning about that group and their role in society and how we should behave and treat them. So that's really the big takeaways from the Ames and Birkin reading. A couple of reminders about what's next. So quiz 3, which covers up to and including this video and the counterculture, subculture stuff that we've talked about on punk rock, as well as the Grossberg reading. That is available on Brightspace right now after 10 p.m. on Wednesday, February 24th. It's due Monday, March 1st at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Your journal entry for this week is also open. That is due the next day, Tuesday, March 2nd at the exact same time. Next week's live class is going to be at our special time on Wednesday, March 3rd. So we're going to meet at 8:30 instead of 7. And you're welcome to attend the last Job Talks event of the semester on the topic of working in the not-for-profit sector. I'll share information with you about that online on Brightspace a little bit closer to the event. But if you already have our class in your calendar at 7 p.m. and you're interested in attending the Job Talks, it'll be a simple bridge. So thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any questions about the material covered for this video, please email me and let me know. And I look forward to reading your reflections and journal entries on this.